Well, hey everybody, this is week 2 of the legislative session. We have Don with us again this year, and then Dawson Schroeder joined us last year as an intern, back again for a couple weeks this year. So today we're going to give you another legislative update and kind of the context for even like why we're all up here. There's a lot of potential changes being made to our laws this year, and how does that affect South Dakota families? That's the whole point of why we're here. There's a lot of drafting going on right now. There's 125 House bills, 121 Senate bills introduced, but someone mentioned the other day they think there's another 800 ideas floating around in some sort of draft form. Some of them will become bills, some of them won't. So even in those background discussions bubbling under the surface right now, there's a lot of family values questions, whether it's right to worship or we'll get into the right to life, the right to parent. All of these questions are being discussed in the hallways, and here soon a lot of them will become bills. So already a lot of those discussions happening, but on the bills that we know, as we speak, the Senate is in session and they'll be debating the Partners in Education issue here soon. So Don, what do we know about that bill?
Yeah, and I will say, Norman, that of course, we care about making sure that our children really get the best possible education out there. And I know there will be a number of different bills kind of dealing with that issue. And the one in particular, in fact, it's on the Senate floor today, is called Partners in Education. And I remember as a legislator, I was there at the very beginning to get that established. What they're doing this year is they're making eligibility broader by extending income limits, and they're also increasing the amount of the average scholarship. So slight improvements to the Partners in Education plan. We're not asking for additional money, but we're increasing eligibility and access, and we think that's a good thing.
Moving on to the topic of worship disruption. We see that in our neighboring state right now. Dawson, what do we need to know?
So we believe that it's fundamental in America that we have the right to worship and people have the right to worship without interference. So obviously we've seen in Minnesota some disruption there. And so our state and our leaders of our state, the governor and our leadership today in their press conference discussed it a little bit. And there's some legislation going around discussing the ideas on what do we need to do to kind of fortify that right and make sure that we're protecting people who practice all religions in the state.
Yeah, so a couple ideas floating around there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's been introduced. Yep.
Yes.
So that's probably going to be a regular topic here at the legislature this year. Something else that's been in the news quite a bit is the Mayday Health abortion pill advertisements. And again, it's important that we protect babies. It's important that we help mothers, but it's also important that we don't falsely advertise. And so there's a couple lawsuits on this from both sides, the Attorney General with the cease and desist and the Governor's office and the actions taken there. And they also sued the Attorney General right back saying, no, we have the right to advertise to your mothers in South Dakota that you can go and get these abortion pills. So there's the legal jockeying going on back and forth that's playing out. But we're also looking at, is legislation needed? Do we need to tweak our laws with regard to how they advertise abortion services, essentially, how they advertise these pills? How do the pills cross state lines? A bunch of different questions there. Again, we talk about a lot of drafting right now, a lot of drafting, a lot of research. Are there steps that we can take, steps that we need to take with that advertising of abortion pills and things like that? Moving on to the next topic, let's talk about birth centers.
Birth centers. So here's the thing, we think it's super important that women have options and access to health care, especially when it comes to having their babies. And I will tell you, it was a singular honor to be at the rostrum in the House of Representatives when we first passed a bill to make midwifery legal in the state, and certainly to expand the definition of what acceptable midwifery was. What this bill is about is expanding the ability for midwife practices to happen in birth centers, and that's super important, especially in a state that's as rural as ours is, because that's where these birth centers are primarily. And you can't always run to a hospital if you are in Faith, South Dakota, or in or Lemon, or in Martin, and so this actually, I think, will improve outcomes for women who are having low risk pregnancies. So happy about that.
Yeah, so expecting to see legislation soon there.
Yeah.
But that's a bit of a recap from this week. I want to remind you we still have a couple days before our day at the Capitol. Next week, Tuesday, we still have some room on both of the buses, or you can join us driving in your own vehicle. Again, Tuesday, January 27. Would love to have you come up. Bring your pastor, bring your family. We'll have scavenger hunts and guided tours, meet your legislators, have lunch in the rotunda. It's going to be a great day. Again, go to our website to register there. We'd love to see you next week. And that's all for week 2.
I'm super excited about some of the speakers that'll be at the day of.
Yeah,
day
but
of
you're
the
kind of
Capitol.
biased.
So
It's his daughter. Yeah, we're excited to have Jenna Netherton come, former legislator, House and Senate, and now spends a lot of her time really equipping the grassroots on how we can make our voice heard. So we'd love to see you next week at our day at the Capitol. Until next time.